Everyone, welcome to the show. So I'm sure you guys have all heard, or maybe remember me mentioning last week, the story about a man named Abrego Garcia. He had come to the U.S. at 16. He was fleeing gang violence. His attorney was recently interviewed on a show called Breaking Points, and she explained that in El Salvador, he was threatened by this gang. They physically beat up his parents and his brother. They threatened to rape his sister if he didn't join the gang. They tried to recruit not just him, but his brother as well. So the family sent Garcia to the US to try to escape. Well, in 2019, he was picked up by immigration and customs, and they tried to deport him. And they claimed, oh, well, he's MS-13, based on zero evidence, by the way. They used the excuse that he had a tattoo and he was wearing a Michael Jordan sweatshirt or a t-shirt and a hat or something like that. So eventually, and by the way, under the Trump administration also. So the judge eventually released him. The judge made the determination that the government could not deport him to El Salvador because of threats upon his life and his family. So, as I mentioned last week, Garcia, he's been living in Maryland. He's been with his wife, who is a U.S. citizen, also with their three kids. Now, one is their biological child. The other two, as I understand it, he is raising as his own. One is from her previous relationship. I don't recall where the third child is from, but all three of these children suffer from some sort of disability or medical condition. So, this is leaving his wife in a difficult position. Well, the Trump administration picked him up again just, about a month or so ago. They refused to release him, and then they sent him to that horrific El Salvador prison. So the Justice Department attorney who has been fighting in court to try to, present some sort of argument for why they did this and why they're keeping him there, the attorney admitted in court that, yeah, this was a mistake. We didn't realize that there was a standing court order. So the Justice Department attorney, they said in several different documents, appeared frustrated with the Trump administration. The attorney for the Justice Department is frustrated with his own client for their refusal to answer any questions about why Garcia was deported and why they couldn't bring him back. So the judge asked this government attorney, why haven't they brought him back? I've ordered that they bring him back, that he was deported wrongly. You've admitted that that's true. When you realize that mistake, why was he not brought back? And what are they saying? What is the Trump administration saying? The Justice Department attorney told the judge, quote, "The first thing I did when I got this case on my desk is ask my clients the same question." So the Trump administration is stonewalling their own attorney. So U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnes was assigned to this case. She ordered the Justice Department, like I said, to bring Garcia back to the U.S. But the Trump Justice Department is saying, no, we don't have any authority. And Trump's own administration and his dingbat press secretary is saying, well, we don't have the authority to bring him home. Yes, it was a clerical error, but there's nothing we can do. They're pretending they have zero power to demand that the El Salvador officials comply with their demand or request to release this man and send him back to the US. Trump's press secretary told Forbes news outlet, quote, "We suggest the judge contact President Bukele because we are unaware of the judge having jurisdiction or authority over the country of El Salvador." This is such bullshit. We, you and I, as taxpayers, are paying for this. Our tax dollars are paying the El Salvador government $6 million a year to house and feed all of these men that they've deported to El Salvador. All Trump has to do is threaten to terminate the funding. We know why they refuse, right? They don't want Garcia to and the other men to tell the media what really happened and how they were treated at this El Salvador prison. And we don't have money here, apparently, according to the Trump administration. Oh, we don't have money to feed poor children in school, right? We're going to take funding away. DOJ is canceling all of these contracts for farmers who help to feed school children who can't afford school lunches. But we don't have money for that. We don't have money to take care of our veterans. We have to cut some of their services. We have to fire over 200,000 government employees who work for the American people. But we have $6 million plus flight costs to spend on this prison, on an El Salvador prison to house innocent men like Garcia. And in the meantime, the Justice Department has now suspended their own attorney who told the judge the truth. A Justice Department source told the Washington Post that this attorney, his name is Erez Ruveni, I think is how you pronounce it, he has been placed on indefinite leave. He had worked at the Justice Department for 15 years, and they just fired him for being honest, for doing his job. So the Washington Post reached out to Attorney General Pam Bondi and asked for a comment on this. And this is what this other sociopath told the Washington Post, quote, "At my direction, every Department of Justice attorney is required to zealously advocate on behalf of the United States. Any attorney who fails to abide by this direction will face consequences." Let me remind you the job of the Justice Department. The job of the Justice Department is to protect us, is to protect, yes, the United States, the American citizens, not the White House, not just the government, not just Donald Trump. They are supposed to be the top cop in the land. They're supposed to be upholding the Constitution. This is in direct contradiction and violation of the Constitution, what they did here with this man. So Judge Zinnes totally slammed the DOJ. The judge ordered or she wrote up a 22-page order, and she ordered the government to bring him back to the United States, bring Garcia back. She gave them until 11:59 p.m. last night. And the judge said there was absolutely, quote unquote, no evidence that Garcia was in a gang, which is what they're claiming. She stated in her ruling, quote, "The evidence against Abrego Garcia consisted of nothing more than his Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie and a vague, uncorroborated allegation from a confidential informant claiming he belonged to MS-13's Western Clique in New York, a place he has never lived." Yeah, that's it. That's what they based it on. That's why they took this man away from his wife and his 3 children, violated a previous court ruling, and threw him in a just obscene, violent, abhorrent place like this El Salvador prison. And then the judge also wrote, quote, "This is not about defendants' inability to return Abrego Garcia, but their lack of desire." That's exactly right. It's not that they can't, they just won't. So yesterday, Trump had filed an emergency request with the Supreme Court. He asked them to block Judge Zinnes' order. And then late yesterday afternoon, the Supreme Court gave Trump a partial win They issued a temporary stay of Judge Zinnis' order. And then Chief Justice John Roberts ordered Garcia's attorney to respond by yesterday, which they had already done that. And the Supreme Court now will review the case. They will make a final ruling. Of course, I have thoughts on this, as you guys would imagine. First of all, that suspended DOJ attorney needs to immediately get on TV and speak out publicly about the Trump administration, about the Justice Department and their violations of due process and our Constitution. This is the moment. If anyone out there has information, this is the moment. This is when we need heroes to step up in our country and do what's right to save our country. This is not hyperbole. This is not me being dramatic. This is literally a matter of us saving our way of life, our rule of law, and democracy and our Constitution. That is the seriousness of this moment. Second, if the Supreme Court ends up ruling in Donald Trump's favor, if they say, yes, they had every right to send this man off into the black hole of this violent place, this violent prison in El Salvador without due process, without any proof that he's done anything wrong, then we need to pack the court. No ifs, ands, or buts, no maybes, no, well, we'll see. No, if they rule in the government's favor on this, we as voters need to demand, not request, not inquire, demand that each and every single Democratic candidate in writing pledges to vote to pack the Supreme Court with more liberal justices before we vote for them. And if they do not, then they do not get our votes. That's the call I'm making here. A lot of people have asked, what can we do? This is what we need to do if and when we take control again and during the midterms. Because this is not America. This no longer resembles the country that we love and that we care about and that we want to see moving forward. As imperfect as it was a hell of a lot better under Democratic rule. So anyway, guys, I will keep you in the loop. I'll let you know as soon as anything new comes out. But according to attorneys that I've seen interviewed, they should probably take this matter up very quickly because, you know, obviously this man's life is in danger being in this horrific prison. You know, as I mentioned in another video, an El Salvador official, one of their own officials said, this prison is so violent and so bad, the only way out of here is in a casket. That is what this man is up against. And he has a wife and 3 children here in the US. An American citizen wife. All right. I will let you know when I hear more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.